Welcome to the Reticle Up podcast, where I, 3-Gun Kenzie, will be interviewing competitive shooters, hunters, fishermen, archers, entrepreneurs, and outdoorsmen. Come learn with me as I interview people from all walks of life, in different disciplines, all across the world, from novices to professionals of all ages. No matter what, everyone has something they can teach you, so come join me on the journey. Welcome back to the podcast. I've got a unique guest on today. I'm really excited. So I have Dominic Thompson. He's an NRL22 Coordinator and obviously a competition shooter in that world. And I know nothing about it. So we're in for a ride tonight. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm good. Yeah, I went to one match. So I'm excited to go over what I should have done and what I shouldn't have done.
Where'd you go?
Orsa had a local match here in Knoxville, Tennessee. So got my tried it out. It was awesome. It was a lot of fun.
Who was your match director? Was it Steve Marmaduke?
Yeah, we had Steve. What's his name? Kevin Suffrage helped set up.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a good group of guys. Steve and I shoot 3-gun too, so I've known him for a while.
Yeah, actually, I shot with Steve Marmaduke this past weekend at an NRL22 X match.
There you go. Okay, because he went over that one over there in North Carolina before that too.
Yeah, he did.
Okay, interesting. So yeah, before we get into all that fun stuff too, I know nothing about you. So tell me a little bit about yourself. Where'd you grow up and were firearms part of that?
So mine is a little unique situation. I grew up actually born and raised in Germany, military brat. So spent 16 years of my life in Germany. I did not grow up with firearms because Germany has very, very strict gun laws. So I really didn't get into guns until after I joined the Army. Naturally, obviously. But when I was 16, I moved to Coppers Cove, Texas, and then finished up my high school there. So in 2003, I joined the Army, and then really didn't get into guns until, I don't know, probably about the age of 22, when I started looking into getting into hunting.
Cool. Okay, so what did you hunt?
Deer.
Yes. I want a Kansas deer really bad.
Yeah, I would like to have some sort of a Midwest deer because I've shot quite a few deer up in Maryland. I got some hosses up there. I got shot some deer in Texas. They're not big.
No, they're not. Like Florida deer. They're dogs.
Yeah. I mean, these are like overgrown German shepherds with antlers.
Absolutely. So. And you're still active duty, right?
I still am. Yes.
That is awesome. So, I mean, are you deployed at all? Or are you typically here? Or?
So the unit that I'm currently in, we are deployable. We're not deployable, but I am in the 101st Airborne Division. We are a deployable division. Just the unit that I'm currently in really doesn't deploy all that much due to their, I don't know, I guess due to their overall mission. But I have deployed quite a few times in the past. And in about 129 days, I put in my retirement packet, but no one's counting. So January of 2023 will be my last month in the Army.
Wow. Thanks for your service. That's awesome.
I appreciate it.
That's awesome. Yeah. We are glad you're here in the States because we need you coordinating these matches. So,
yeah.
So I guess then the Army was the actual like place that you were taught the firearm rules and how to shoot and all of that.
So the Army taught me how to shoot, but they did teach me basic fundamentals, basic rifle marksmanship, as well as gun and rifle safety. But honestly, the person, or the persons, I should say, that really taught me how to shoot was my buddy Clark Kernut and Travis Walla. They both run matches with San Antonio Precision Rifle Club down in San Antonio, Texas. And both of them, they host the annual World's Longest Shot Challenge as well. So Applied Ballistic comes out. I mean, the last time they did it, they, I think the targets were set all the way up to 4,700 yards.
What?
Yeah. They didn't go that far though. Yeah. That's where at the time, I think David Tubbs set the world record for the cold bore shot. It was 3 consecutive cold bore shots. I think it was like at 2,200 yards. I may be mistaken, but yeah, they did a lot of ELR stuff out there for center fire and for 22.
That is so cool. Okay, Did you shoot? Did you compete? Did you?
No, I actually wasn't because when was that? I want to say it was a weekend where I was still an instructor down at Fort Sam Houston, Texas, and I didn't compete because I had to work that weekend.
Oh, darn.
Yeah. Oh, trust me, it sucked. I really wanted to go.
Yeah, that's rare to have the distance. First of all, like there's not a lot of ranges that are going to have those distances and the targets out there.
No, Valdina Ranch. Yeah, 4,700 yards. It was pretty freaking epic.
That's so cool. What is your longest shot?
My longest shot is, well, longest shot with an impact.
Well, what's not an impact? You mean just?
I mean, I could say. Yeah, I mean, you know, if I'm aiming at the ground, that's an impact, right? No, so my longest shot was a mile.
Cool.
I have shot at 2,200 yards, and that was with a 6XC. But I mean, you're talking about a 243 caliber rifle or bullet. It wasn't going that far. There was no way. We barely saw the impacts at a mile.
Yeah, that's really cool though. So when you actually went out and bought like your first gun, was your first gun a rifle?
Yeah, my first gun was a Remington 700 SPS.
Nice.
In 30-06, because everybody that I knew with a hunting rifle, they're like, I got to get a 30-06, or you got to get yourself a 308. Yeah, I can tell you now, 30-06 doesn't do crap for long range shooting.
No. I had a 30-30. That was my first hunting rifle. So yeah, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
So when you were shooting and stuff, would you say that you were just naturally talented and picked it up easily, or did you have some stuff to learn?
No, absolutely not. So my buddy Clark, he always tells me, because I always call him, I was like, hey man, so I got this issue going on. He's like, if you didn't have any luck or any bad luck, you wouldn't have any luck at all. No, I think you just need to pick up golf. So now when I tell him like, hey Clark, I got this problem, he's like, Dominic, one word. I was like, yeah, I know, golf. But really, I need this problem fixed. Yeah, no, I am definitely not a naturally talented shooter by any means. I actually got into long range shooting when I wanted to convert my Remington 700 in good old 30-06 into a long range shooting rifle. And after I learned a little bit, like about that much about ballistics, I quickly realized that a 30-06 has no place in long range competitions. So I looked around, and this was when the Ruger Precision rifle first came out. So I bought one of those in 6.5 Creedmoor, and happened to be rolling across Facebook, and I saw an intro to long range shooting that was hosted by my buddy Clark and Travis. And I was like, well, might as well go. And that day, everybody got the impact targets at 1,000 yards. And I think my furthest target I've ever hit up until that point was like 200 yards at best.
Wow.
Yeah, so it was pretty awesome. And ever since then, I jumped right in, feet, head, arms first, all of it, all at once, and been competing ever since.
Okay, so the friends are the ones that introduced you to the competition shooting then?
Oh yeah, so I blame my habit 100% on Clark Kernut. Yes, Clark, calling you out. I blame you for this awesome addiction.
The financial situation that you're in is.
Yeah, we should definitely not talk about finances. I'm upstairs, so my wife definitely can't hear me, so we're good on that.
Yeah. What's my favorite part about this whole episode right now already is that we haven't even met, and this is fantastic. I feel like I'm sitting right next to you on the couch.
Hey, you know.
Yeah, so you got to blame the buddy. So how?
Well, you gotta blame them. But you know, ultimately, it's a phenomenal sport. Oh, yeah. The camaraderie is absolutely amazing. 99.9% of the times, anytime you go to matches, people are always willing to help you.
Yeah, absolutely. So you went precision rifle. Then did you go to NRL22? Was that even around yet? Or did you go pistol shooting? Like what all shooting disciplines did you try?
So initially I got into PRS because that's all that was around down in Texas.
Yeah.
And this was, let's see, This was right after NRL probably started. Yeah, it was right. Well, no, it was right before the NRL22 piece started. And I really didn't know anything about, essentially like precision rifle series or NRL or, shooting off of props and stuff like that. I always thought, shoot from a ground blind and you're done. So, or shoot from the prone. I never would have thought to shoot off tank traps and all sorts of crazy stuff. But I've competed in PRS, NRL22, NRL22X, tactical carbine, IDPA, and USPSA.
Okay, so you've done most of it. Okay.
Yeah. Now, when we say, now I really haven't competed like you do in USPSA. I've competed in tactical carbine at the local level as well as IDPA, nothing on the national level.
Yeah.
NRL22, NRL22X, and PRS, I've done it all at the national level.
That's so cool though. Yeah. I mean, unless you really live around those ranges and stuff, it's really hard to get into it too.
It is. Yeah. NRL22 and NRL22X are by far the easiest ones to get around. Here in Tennessee, we run a page, myself and Levi Sanderson, we run a page called Tennessee Rimfire. And anybody in Tennessee, Kentucky area, we pretty much like link their pages to our page so that everybody knows where they can go for matches. And we actually planned it out where when I started my club back in May of 2019, Levi Sanderson started getting on board, and then Bill Mickey got on board. Now Justin McBee got on board. And then our buddy Levi Wilson down in Huntsville, Alabama, like northern Alabama. And we all kind of like got together and be like, hey, I'm running mine the third Saturday of every month. Hey, it'd be cool if you were able to run yours on the first, the second, the fourth, so that essentially we can all support each other's clubs. And I mean, there's a bunch of clubs here in Tennessee alone. You can go to an NRL22 match every single weekend. And it's all within 2 to 3 hours drive.
Which is doable. When people
easily
about 3 hours, I'm like, 3 hours is a blessing for me.
Yeah, when I was living in Texas, we're like, 3 hours? Okay, too easy. That's right down the road.
Yeah, I start complaining when it gets to like 10.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, not fun. So the one thing that you pointed out that every match director should hear is try. It'd be great if they tried to talk to other match directors even nearby about not scheduling on top of one another, because I think I've had to sacrifice like 6 different matches where I would have gone to both if we had just picked like a weekend before, a weekend after, right? I know that's difficult. I really do. I get it because there's other things going on at the ranges, but man, like you said, helping each other out is a big deal.
Yeah, and I mean, we all do. Levi Sanderson typically comes to my matches. I typically go to his matches, and we really help each other out. We help each other with props. We help each other with targets. And, we're always willing to, provide stuff. I mean, me and him have gone to X matches where we're like, hey man, do you need tablets? Do you need targets? Do you need us to bring rifles? What do you need us to bring? And we're always willing to do that because at the end of the day, we're trying to grow the sport.
Yeah, I think more clubs need to do that. That's really cool. I don't know how to get that information out sometimes of like, hey, we have rifles. Like there's no excuse. You just show up and bring some ammo, hopefully. It's really hard right now.
Well, no, I actually, for my club, at least I provide the ammo.
What?
Yeah, so I provide the ammo. The shooter just has to pay for the ammo. Yeah. Because all my ammo that I have is lot tested for that rifle.
Right. Oh, so that's easy, guys. Oh my gosh. So how did your first ever competition go and which one was it?
So my first one, I want to say was at Navasota, Texas, which I love that shooting range. But it was about 3 hours south of San Antonio. And
Corey K, by the way.
Say what?
Did you shoot with Corey Klimashevich? I don't know how to say his last name. In Navasota.
I may have. I mean, their club matches were freaking insane.
Yeah, they're legit. I was just there working a match, so I love that place.
Oh yeah, I mean, so when I first shot there a couple years back, well, about 3 years back, well, no, about 4 years back now. I think they were averaging about 50 to 60 shooters. Now they're averaging at least 100 shooters per club match.
That's crazy cool.
Oh yeah, and it's a phenomenal facility. So that was my first place that I ever shot a PRS match. and my buddy Clark took me, and didn't have any super high expectations. My only goal was not to zero a stage and not be last.
That is everyone's goal. You can't, well, you can, but how often do DQs happen in your sport?
They don't happen nowhere near as it does in USPSA. That I can promise you. I've had to DQ people at a local level match. I've had to DQ people. I've had a DQ a friend of mine at one of my X matches that I've held, and it sucks. It really does. But no, I don't think we have that many DQs compared to pistol sports, because we transition any movement with a bolt back.
Right. Yeah. That was my one question, is most people are like, my goal is to not come in last or DQ. Yours is at least to make a hit on a stage. That's good.
Yeah. And I mean, my buddy Clark always told me, he's like, someone has to win the match. Might as well be you. Which is true. I mean, if somebody has to win it. It might as well be you.
There you go. That's awesome. So what did you learn about like yourself, the gun, and all of that at your first competition?
I suck at reading wind. I sucked at getting in a stable position and getting off rounds quicker than I needed to. I remember my first stage, I was all like, all right, I'm doing great. About to pull my first shot, beep. I'm like, I got like one shot off, man. Got an impact, but I got like one shot off. So yeah, time management and clock management, prop management, all that stuff comes with time. And that's what I tell a lot of my new shooters is, don't worry about the clock. Promise you, you're going to time out.
On every
on majority of all the stages, you will probably time out, but at the end of the day, make sure you have good basic fundamentals, build yourself a solid position, and get some impacts. If all you do is get 3 shots off and you get 3 impacts, you have 100% impact rate.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, just have fun.
It is a lot of fun. And so much.
Yeah, it's the most fun you can have with a 22.
Yeah. The amount of money, and again, we won't go back that far, but the amount of money people put into these guns is insane for 22s.
Yeah. So my first rifle, me and my buddy Clark built, it was a badass 1022, and I still have it. And it shoots lights out for sure. I mean, I got it tested at the Lapua Test Center up in Marengo, Ohio, and at 100 meters, which is right around 109 yards, it was grouping right at, I want to say like 0.8 inches.
Nice.
Oh wow. Yeah, which is pretty badass for a 1022.
Yeah.
And then I progressed to bolt action. I ended up getting a CZ457, which grouped pretty tight at 100 yards as well. I think it was like 0.6.
Yeah.
And now I shoot a voodoo.
Ooh, okay, you fancy now.
Yeah, as my buddy Clark would say, he would call me a voodoo doo-doo head.
I like that.
Yep.
Oh, that made me laugh. So what made you like keep going back to, I guess, PRS or NRL22 versus like the pistol stuff?
So I really like the camaraderie with it. I noticed that a lot in IDPA and USPSA, mainly in USPSA, there's a lot of
drama.
Well, that's every sport. I don't want to say drama, but there's just a lot of just like competition.
Sure. Yeah.
Right. But with NRL22 and all the centerfire stuff, I just really like the camaraderie, the fun. And then with NRL22, just the excitement of being able to shoot small targets at really long distances.
For a cheaper ammo price, not cheaper gun price.
Yeah, definitely not a cheaper gun price, because my voodoo costs about the same as much as my centerfire does.
Oh yeah. So I actually didn't know this, so I want you to share about it. I didn't know when NRL22 was founded. And can you just give an overview for people who are listening that are like, what is that? Yeah,
so NRL22 it was started back in March of 2017 by Tyler Frenner and Travis Shida. So Tyler Frenner, he's currently he's the co-founder of NRL and NRL22, and he's currently the director of match operations. And Travis Ishida is also one of the founders, and he's currently the president of both. So at the time of NRL centerfire, it was a phenomenally fast-growing sport, and Tyler wanted to have a less intimidating sport that allowed women and children to attend. So he ended up going to a match where a guy was pretty much doing NRL22 type stuff, and kind of picked his brain, and they started doing NRL22 with the intent to get more women, more kids into the sport.
Okay. And do you know like the membership numbers, like where you're at from where you started?
You put me on a spot. I do know that I want to say we have right now a little over or a little bit under 1,000 active members.
Cool.
In 2017, don't quote me on these numbers, but I want to say it was maybe 200, 300.
Really cool. Yeah.
Yeah. So one of the magazines actually forgot what magazine did it, but they did an article on it. And they said that NRL22 was the fastest growing shooting sport. And that and compared to PRS, IDPA, USPSA, all combined.
Whoa.
Yeah. And the reason for that was NRL22, if you had a backyard at your house and you can go out to 100 yards, you can essentially set up your own club, have 10, 15 of your friends come out, and you essentially have yourself a club. Heck, you can have 5 people come out and you have yourself a club.
Yeah.
We don't mandate how many people are in your club at all. You got people like in Utah, they average about 60, 70 shooters on club matches.
Yeah. Utah is a shooting sport mecca, by the way, not just for NRL22.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Doesn't surprise me one bit.
Yeah. It's not fair. Can you talk a little bit about the NRL X?
So NRL X, it's just like where the match director, just like in Centerfire and PRS or in NRL, the match director, they out of their dark spots of their brain, come up with their own course of fire, their own stages, and they can go as far as they want, as long as they are able to visually see impacts. There's still a lot of
that could be 800 yards.
No. So the furthest one that I've seen so far is 400 yards.
Ooh.
And I know Chris Simmons, he just did his last weekend, and I think our longest target engagement was 381 yards. When I went to Ben Blevins' match for the Sweaty Yeti match, I want to say that was like at the end of July, beginning of August. His was 400 yards. So 400 is about the sweet spot, because even with target hit indicators, you have to have really, really thin steel.
Yeah.
Some people use aluminum at that distance, or they'll use mild steel, or the thickest that I use, 250 and beyond, is like 3/16 inch steel.
I didn't know that was even a thing. Look, I'm already learning. Boom.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Oh, trust me. It even gets crazier when you're trying to shoot at that distance, because I did the math one time. Shooting 400 yards is like the equivalent of shooting like 2,200 yards in a centerfire rifle.
No,
yeah, it equates to about the same. Don't quote me on the distances, but the mills is ridiculous.
Yeah, that's really neat. Did you hit both of the longer targets?
So I hit when at the Sweaty Yeti match, I ended up placing 3rd, which I was stupid surprised by. I did end up. I think I had impacted it. I know I impacted it once for sure, because you had to go near to far, strong side, and I want to say it was far to near support side.
Ugh.
Yeah, I did a lot better support side.
Ugh, I do too, but that's because you're concentrating, is what I've been told.
No, so I used to be left eye dominant. So when I competed in high school with air rifles and stuff like that, they didn't have a right-handed rifle. I mean, a left-handed rifle. So they said, hey, we're going to convert you over to a right-handed. I'm like, okay, sure. I don't know what that means.
Wait,
yeah.
How do you have to go the whole way? Like turn your head?
No, you're talking about now?
Well, no, like before. So if you have a right-hand rifle and you're left eye dominant, are you like?
I wore an eye patch. It worked.
I need a picture of that.
Yeah, nope. That's many years ago. That was like 2021. Yeah, I was like, good God, that was like 23 years ago.
I need that. Yeah, so I don't know. I like the left hand. I don't know why, but I was getting 1 for 1 for that was my best stage, was the left-handed whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, but so NRL22X, it's solely on the match director on what they want to create, how many stages. Typically, we require that a match director have a minimum of 10 stages.
Okay.
And it's completely up to them on how they want to do the course design. And it's a one-off match.
It's really cool. Yeah. Yeah. So it's like TEDx.
It's like what?
TED Talks, but like TEDx.
Yeah, there you go.
There you go. See, that's relating it to something I understood, but yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, so let's dive into like the beginner world. So we're talking about a new person, probably still me. I'm definitely a noob. But for starters, like where is the place that people should go to get information about NRL22?
So first place they should probably go look is to go to nrl22.org, navigate the website, specifically the rules, because we always get a lot of questions about, hey, what's allowed, what's not allowed, what's considered open, what's considered base class. If I'm a minor, what's considered a young gun, what's considered, ladies and this, that, and another. So I would say initially check out nrl22.org. There are a lot of Facebook posts, Facebook groups out there. Like I was mentioning earlier, Tennessee Rimfire, we have good information on there. You have NRL22 members. You have, let's see, oh shoot, what is it? NRL22 matches, competitive 22 LR gear talk and match finder. And then a lot of times when you find something in your local area and you go to a match, a lot of people will tell you, hey, go on this Facebook page or go to practice score and underneath matches, type in NRL22 and it'll find anything that's listed as an NRL22 match.
That's cool. That was my next question. Is everything really typically on practice score? Do y'all ever use like match sign up or any of those other obscure platforms?
No, every single match I've been to has always been through practice score.
Okay, that's the way it should be, by the way.
I agree. It is so easy using practice score, using tablets. I remember my first match, I didn't have tablets and I used paper. And good God, was that a nightmare.
First of all, men can't write handwriting wise.
No, not at all. So I made it easy. I did X's and O's for hits.
Can you imagine if it rained, or did it rain when you had paper scoring?
So was it last year? I think last year's rules, we got rid of all the paper stages.
Okay.
We used to always do a paper stage, and so first, we got rid of the paper stages because a lot of people would either complain, be like, hey, it's raining cats and dogs out here, targets are getting soaked, and yeah, so I'm kind of glad we got rid of the paper stages. Now the only thing I got to worry about getting wet on range day is my zeroing targets.
Yeah, that's fair. Okay, so I don't know if you're allowed to recommend, because I don't know if you're sponsored, whatever, but if you can.
I am not sponsored. I am sponsored by Dominick's bank account
and Dominick's wife. So
yes.
There you go. What are some good guns? I know you mentioned a few, but like specifically, like I know nothing about a lot of these firearms. So what are some good guns people can start with? Not talking about optics yet, just the firearms.
Yeah. So firearms, if you're just getting into this and you've never shot a center fire equivalent match, nothing wrong with a 1022. There's nothing wrong with an RPR, Ruger Precision Rimfire. Nothing wrong with a CZ 457, 455, a Tikka T1X. Those are all perfectly fine rifles. You can get yourself a Bergara B14R, which is the exact same thing as a Bergara B14 HMR, except it's a 22.
Awesome.
Just a little fun fact. The 2020 National Championship base class was won by a Tikka T1X. And the Young Guns in 2021 National Championship was won by a Tikka T1X.
Ooh, okay. My friend actually has the Tikka for PRS. That's what the gun she started on. She's building one, or she just built one now, but that Tikka served her well.
Yeah, the Tikka T1X is a great rifle, especially when you get it lot tested and you get the right lot of ammo. Yeah. Those things will shoot lights out.
Yeah, absolutely. That's cool. Okay. Optic land. And again, these are people that know nothing, right? So definitely mills, not MOA, I would hope. Right?
So I did a query on this when it came to, and let me pull that up real quick.
Oh,
I did a query with the national from this year's past national championship, and I want to say roughly like right around 99 to 98%. All were using mills.
Okay.
Let me pull it up right here.
There's a few outliers there.
Yeah, so it was 136, so 85% were using mills, and 24, about 15% were using MOA.
Interesting. That blows my mind. Okay.
So at the end of the day, though, like, because I get that question a lot.
Yeah.
Hey, what should I use? Should I use mills? Should I use MOA? At the end of the day, shoot with whatever you're comfortable with.
Yeah.
If you were taught MOA and that's what you're comfortable with, shoot MOA. I was taught in the Army how to use MOA. I don't speak MOA anymore. I don't shoot MOA anymore. So when I got my first scope, my buddy Clark, he's like, "Hey man, go to mills. It's a lot easier to converse." But he's one of those guys that when he does ELR shooting, he'll do MOA because it's a lot finer. And then for centerfire stuff and NRL22, he'll do mill.
Oh, okay. So I switched all my 3-gun stuff over to mills.
It's easier.
Yeah, it was a lot easier. And I hit the 630-yard target recently in a competition. So boom.
Oh, watch out.
Oh, that was really exciting though for me. So yeah, that's neat to know. At least there are options. I thought it would be mostly mills, but that's good.
It is. I mean, majority of the matches that I go to, you have 1 or 2 people that are using MOA.
Yeah, and you're under 100 or you're under a couple 100 yards. Yeah. Okay. So what are the most common scopes you see? Magnification levels, all of that.
So the most common scopes that you typically see from manufacturers wise is you see a lot of Athlon, you see a lot of Vortex, and those are and that's all the way from their low end to mid grade, all the way to their high end. You have guys that are shooting US Optics, Collis, Night Force. I mean, my rifle is set up identical to my centerfire rifle to include the optic.
That makes sense.
And the only reason for that is it translates. If I'm used to certain motions on my scope, because I use a Collis 525,
another way.
Yeah, so I have a left-sided windage, and my parallax knob is right underneath my elevation knob.
That's cool.
So if I was to transition to a different scope, like a Night Force or a Vortex, it's opposite. Yeah. So, and the great thing about the Collis 525 is when they built it, it was with the intention that you never have to come off your glass. Your right hand never has to come off the trigger.
Yeah, it's brilliant. I like their stuff. That was one of the things where I touched my friends. I was like, wait, it's the opposite direction.
Yeah. Now, I mean, there's options where you can keep the windage on the right side.
Yeah. Yeah.
It just makes sense to have it on the left for me.
It does. That's neat. Okay.
Yeah. So, but ultimately, yeah, Vortex, Athlon, who else? Nikon, Bushnell, all those guys, they make good scopes.
Can you talk about the magnification levels, like 1 to whatever, 2 to whatever, like what?
Yeah, so at the end of the day, you want the most magnification you can get where you can see the target clear, but that still allows you a good field of view so you don't get lost in trying to acquire your target. I would say nothing less than 12 power, especially when we're shooting NRL22 X matches. Yeah, because I mean, some of those targets can be pretty small, and if you don't have a good amount of magnification, it's pretty hard to not necessarily see the target, but to see your misses, to see where you're impacting, see mirage, see what the environment is doing, so that you can make an accurate decision on where to hold.
Okay. Most magnification, minimum 12 power.
Yeah, that's just my personal opinion. Others may disagree.
Okay, that's fine. But you're on this show for now, so we're learning from you. That's awesome. Okay, so in terms of like modifications now, and I've read some of the rules ish, but like, what are the best modifications that shooters can consider to make life easier? You know, I know some aftermarket parts are available for firearms, some aren't, you know?
Yeah, so if you have any rifle that's in a Remington 700 footprint, like the Voodoos, the Bagaras, everything is interchangeable. The triggers are interchangeable. You can pull if you're on a severe budget and you have a centerfire rifle, you could essentially pull that barreled action out, pull the trigger off that rifle, and put it on whatever, like let's say it's a Bagara B14. You can put it on that rimfire, put it back in that chassis, and it's golden.
That's awesome.
Modifications wise, triggers are nice. If you can get a light, safe trigger, I prefer triggers that are under a pound. It just makes it a lot easier to engage your targets. I remember my RPR rimfire that I had, it was an extremely heavy trigger. Even when I put it all the way down, and even when I was just, free recoiling it essentially, where I wouldn't put my shoulder into the rifle, and I would pull on the trigger, I could actually see the reticle kind of move on the target. And I was like, yeah, I don't like that. Triggers are good to upgrade. If you're an open class, a lot of guys, they'll upgrade to a match chambered barrel. So yeah, triggers and barrels are pretty much the things that are going to give you the best bang for your buck.
Yeah. Now, what about like elevated or adjustable stocks or the thumb rest piece, and all of that stuff?
Yeah. So depending on obviously what platform you're using, if you're using a stock, if you're using a chassis, they have a lot of benefits. Definitely you want to have something where you can get a proper cheek weld. And so you want an adjustable riser. You want to be able to have your grip properly on the rifle. So a lot of competitive shooters, you'll actually see them with the thumb on the same side as their fingers, because what that prevents from happening is it prevents you from applying any unnecessary or undue cant essentially on that rifle without you knowing. Yeah. Because you might square up to that target, and that target is actually hung pretty crooked because of how the terrain is. And then the next thing you know, you look at your bubble level and you're like, holy crap, my rifle is completely uneven. Which if you're trying to engage a target at 200 yards with a 22, you're probably going to miss that target because your cant is completely off. Now, then again, it also depends on the size of the target.
Yeah. And in cowboy action, actually, that was the first lesson I learned, is just keeping the thumb kind of with the trigger finger and then lever it instead of wrap, because it's the time for that one that you're taking.
Well, cowboy action shooting, that's just pretty cool though.
That was a lot of fun. I've shot everything besides, I haven't shot an IDPA yet or an actual PRS match. So those are my next two. And then I'll have the full gamut.
Well, there's a good amount of places around here for that.
Yeah, no, I'm getting into it for sure. So the other thing I haven't asked, so when I went, I saw suppressed and unsuppressed firearms. Obviously, suppressed is wonderful for ears. So
it's great.
Yeah. How hard is it though when you suppress firearm to like tweak ammo, or any cycling issues with that? Or
with a 1022, there can be some issues, because obviously it's just like an AR. It requires essentially the gas that's being produced by the actual ammo to cycle that bolt. 22s can be pretty finicky when it comes to a suppressor, but at the end of the day, the suppressor acts as a tuner on a 22. So, and it can as well as in center fire, but you don't typically see a significant point of impact shift in a center fire compared to a 22. So you can have ammo that is shooting lights out with the suppressor. As soon as you take that suppressor off, it's essentially out of its node, if you want to call it that, or it's out of its barrel harmonics, and it's just shooting all over the place. Yeah. That's why you see now here, especially this year, a lot of shooters are using barrel tuners.
What are barrel tuners?
So a barrel tuner is exactly what it sounds like. It tunes the barrel to the ammo.
Is that though where the gas hole is? Is that at the muzzle break in? Like what?
So it's all at the muzzle break. So what it is, essentially, it's a piece of metal, and that it's got a bunch of hash marks on there, or indicator marks, and it screws away from the shooter and into the shooter to time essentially barrel whip. And once your barrel is perfectly like harmonic, or where where all the ammo shoots perfectly out of, you have a perfectly tuned rifle at that point.
But then does that stay? Sorry, dumb questions probably. Does the tuner stay on it? Do you still put a muzzle brake on it? Do you still put a suppressor, or is that it?
No, so there's plenty of different tuners out there. Aaron Hip makes one from ATS. Eric Cortina makes his own. You have a Harrell bolt-on tuner. A lot of the ones, so like the Eric Cortino one, which is the EC tuner, and the one from Aaron Hip, the ATS tuner. The ATS tuner, you can use the pre-existing threads, and you can screw on your muzzle brake if you choose to do that. I don't know why you would, there's no recoil management, but whatever, it's part for looks. Or you can put your thread protector on there and your suppressor. That was the intent. Okay. The EC tuner requires additional threading to be threaded onto the barrel, and that's a permanent structure.
Okay, that makes sense.
It's not permanent, but it stays on there.
Yeah. So what are the most popular brands for suppressors?
So I don't shoot suppressed anymore.
Okay.
It's just, I would say for NRL, a lot of Thunder Beast arms. It's probably about the most common one that I've seen is the Thunder Beast arms.
Okay. Okay, cool. Yeah, I still wear ears no matter what, but I think it's because I want to keep my hearing.
Yeah, I don't care if people are shooting suppressed or not suppressed.
It's because you're military. Most military dudes gave up when they entered.
Yeah, I hate wearing hearing protection. Now, when it comes to center fire, I'm wearing hearing protection.
Oh yeah, no, that's
yeah.
Okay, so for bare minimum, and let's pretend like the local match is not going to have the gear or the guns that they need, right? Or they're finally going to a major match and they really want to be self-sufficient. So what is the bare minimum gear and ammo that someone needs to go shoot a match?
Okay, so bare minimum for a club level NRL22 match is obviously they need to have a rifle chambered in 22 LR. None of that Stangers and none of them the Magnums. We're not doing any of that. So it's 22 LR. You want to have a scope, ideally with external turrets where you can dial to your elevation, or have some sort of a reticle system where you can have holdovers. You definitely want a bipod, and you want some sort of a rear bag. And then at a minimum, you're going to need 50 rounds of ammo, not including any bonus stages that the match director might put on, or any ammo you would need for zeroing.
Yeah, and then they'll have the like 2 mags on you, right? So if you have to reload for the 12 count round stages or whatever.
That's why we have mag extenders.
Yeah, okay, fancy.
Hey, do what you gotta do. But and one big thing is that a lot of people make the mistake on is they show up to a match and they don't know what kind of velocity that their rifle has, which is no fault of their own, because they're beginners. Everybody's got to start somewhere. So if they do get a chance and they go to their local range and they see somebody with a chronograph, see if they can borrow it and throw a couple rounds through it. Typically around 10 to 15 rounds will get you a good accurate reading. And then a solid ballistic solver. You can go as expensive as get a Kestrel 5700 with applied ballistics and Link, which is a phenomenal investment, I should say.
I'm in love with Kestrel.
I love that thing. Or you can pay a $30 app fee and get Straylock Pro, which does a lot of the same things. Yeah, what I like about the Kestrels is it gives you true and accurate weather, density, altitude, barometric pressure, everything you need at your location. With the apps, you're essentially stuck with using the most closest weather station. So the density altitude could be off here and there. So it can potentially affect bullet trajectory. Potentially.
Yeah. And I know we're going to talk about this soon coming up, but like you already mentioned it, when you've got 22 and your centerfire rifles matching, right? You already kind of know that the Kestrel will read wherever you're at. You're trying to work on the same platforms. Like for me, like cross training is important. So being able to work with that same stuff that I think is helpful. So yeah, finding something that works and sticking to it. Chronographing is huge. I think every single firearm should be chronographed.
Some people that I know would actually disagree. Here lately, I've actually not been chronographing.
Oh, well, okay. For me, like in 3-gun, we see those shots at 630 yards. Like I gotta know.
Yeah. I've known buddies that don't chronograph at all. They'll do it at like the beginning and be like, we're good. And, but they'll true their velocity or true their BCs. I typically, here lately, because of the new barrel that I received, I actually do all my testing at 200 yards.
Okay. Yeah. That's more for 22. Like,
yes. Yeah.
PRS, you got a chrono. Come on. You can't not. This is why you suck.
So at the end of the day, if you get low standard deviations, low extreme spreads. At that point, you have now had a good amount of confidence that your ammo is going to shoot consistently tight, especially if you are getting tight groups at 100 yards. So that if you do miss that shot, you're gonna be like, hey, my scope is perfectly plumb. My ammo is shooting great. I got low SDs, low ESs. It's shooting bug holes at 100 yards. When I missed that shot, it was 100% me.
Yeah.
Whereas if I'm now in 22s, you can get extreme spreads of like 60 or 70.
Yeah.
And that may not make a significant difference at 100 yards, but it does. It definitely can.
So I don't want to go too far in the rules, but can you explain the difference on basic level that people know and open with the price tag and how that works?
Okay, so base class is, we're limited at $1,250. That includes the rifle and glass, period. You can modify a little bit with base class. You can change the trigger. You can change the grip on it. You can change the cheek riser to get a proper cheek weld. And then there's a couple other small things, but like as soon as you throw in a new barrel, it becomes open class. Open class it is what it is.
Run what you got.
Run what you got. If it's anything over $1,250 combined, it is open class. And that's all based off of MSRP.
Yeah. And the newish rule, right, is that you can have unlimited bags.
Yeah. So one of the reasons why we got rid of all the gear restrictions, for the most part, is people would ask, well, is this a piece of equipment or is this part of the rifle? And with our executive team, all of us have full-time jobs.
Yeah.
So it's kind of hard for us to say, hey, this is a piece of equipment, but this one is identical to it. But because it's all together, it's, one piece of equipment versus two pieces of equipment.
Right.
So we just said the heck with it. And we said unlimited gear with the exception of shooting sticks and tripods.
Okay. That's fair. Yeah. I like that. Well, and I don't know enough again about PRS, but like, is there unlimited bags in that one too, or is that division again?
Oh no. Yeah. PRS is the same way. NRL is the same way. PRS is the same. You can bring what you brought. I mean, you can take a massive beanbag out there if you wanted to and lay on it and use it. I have seen that at a match before. I believe Armageddon Gear actually makes one, and it's amazing. It's pretty funny to see.
I need that.
It's pretty funny. Yep. Gear restriction wise, I went to a 2-day match a couple years back where Matt Brousseau, he only allowed one bag.
Yeah.
That was it. No tripods, period. And I've shot matches where match directors were like, I don't care what you do. And then there's match directors who were like, hey, tripods, you can use them, but they have to be deployed on the clock.
Okay.
So match directors, all they have different rules. But I believe in the specifically PRS, I don't think that they have any type of gear restrictions.
Okay. That's pretty cool though. I mean, if you look at cross training again, like you kind of want the same setup that you're going to work with. Also, kind of like the Little Mermaid, all the gadgets and gizmos and whatever. I need one thing and like nothing else, because too many bags and too many sizes and too many things just blows my mind. I'm like, I can't.
Yeah. So my matches, when I go to my matches, I use one bag.
Yeah.
9 times out of 10, I use one bag, and that's a Weebad wax canvas mini fortune cookie. That's all I use. Sometimes when I use when I shoot the rooftop stage, I'll use a Weebad bump pillow as a rear support, but that's it. 99% of the times I'm running one bag.
Yeah, it's smart.
Because I'm going to screw it up anyways.
Yeah, no, for sure. I am too. And I don't need extra problems. I just need the gun problem. So for ammo, I know I've seen like more, I guess, lubricated ammo, different ammo that I've seen in like 22 pistol. So what are some good ammunitions to use for these rifles?
Well, depends. Earlier I mentioned about lot testing. That's the key, is lot testing. Is you can have Voodoo that shoots absolutely like crap with a certain lot of Lapua, CCI standard velocity, 22 norm attack or something like that. But you get a different lot of ammo of the exact same manufacturer and it shoots lights out.
Oh,
So yeah, it's insane. When I went to the Lapua test facility, I think my worst group, I want to say at 100 yards was like 6 inches.
ooh.
Yeah. And I think Luke Johnson up there, I want to say we tested like 16 or 17 different lots of Center X.
Wow.
And
Okay.
it was the last lot of ammo that shot the tightest.
Interesting.
Yep. So most commonly though, you'll see all brands of SK. So SK Standard Plus, SK Rifle, SK Long Range Match. Sometimes you have people that are shooting SK Pistol if they're shooting within 100 yards. Then you have Ely Club, Target. Then you have Lapua Center X, Midas Plus, Midas, all that stuff. And now you're getting into the really expensive ammo.
Okay. I haven't heard of some of those.
Like Ely 10X is probably the most expensive ammo out there. And don't quote me on this, but I want to say it's like 60 to 70 cents a round.
For 22?
Oh yeah. Yeah, for 22.
Sorry, Ely. I love Ely, but oh my gosh, Ely.
Yeah. Well, that's Ely 10X.
Yeah.
And that's high quality ammo. But I mean, there's, like I said, you have guys that will shoot CCI standard velocity, the stuff, prior to COVID and everything, that was like $2.35 for a box of 50. I got one of my rifles, my loaner rifle, my Bagara. It shoots SK standard velocity, and I'm shooting 1-inch groups at 100 yards with it.
That's awesome. Okay.
On a good day.
Yeah. That's why you need to zero it everywhere you go.
Oh yeah, I zero every match.
Yeah. So let's talk about that. For NRL22 rifles, this is probably obvious, but just in case, what distance should the optic be zero for?
Typically 50 yards. So when I did the NRL22 championship survey, 98% were all zeroed at 50 yards.
I love this data.
I'm a data guy.
I love it too. I am as well. Okay, now the harder concept of things. Nobody shot a PRS. They've never shot an NRL22. They've never had a scope before. Can you explain to newbies what dialing means and how that functions? Just like a briefish overview.
Sure. So dialing is where you are using your external turrets and you turn them to a certain elevation that will allow you to make an accurate shot. For instance, if I'm shooting at 100 yards and my Kestrel says I need, for instance, my rifle is typically right around 1.7 mils at 100 yards. Instead of me in my reticle, depending on what reticle I'm using, instead of me doing a holdover with my hash marks in there, I'm able to dial to 1.6 mils or 1.7 mils, or if you're using minutes of angle, whatever that converts into MOAs, I don't know. You can hold your crosshairs center on that target, excluding wind, and you can engage your target accurately that way. Whereas if you're doing a holdover, you have to take in consideration of your elevation as well as your wind. Because I mean, there's been times where I've shot targets at 100 yards and I'm holding 1.5 mils of wind.
Oh wow. Okay. Ooh.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it sucks on windy days.
Oh yeah. No, thank you.
Yeah.
By the way, are we a pro at wind reading yet?
I wouldn't say I'm a pro. I've gotten pretty good at reading Mirage and making necessary changes on the fly.
That's good. No, that's huge.
Now, there's been matches I've gone to where I'm like, no, the wind is doing this. I can't be wrong. Of course I can't be wrong. There's no way the wind switched on me. The Mirage is, yep, it's going left to right. Crap, there goes another miss.
Dude.
Yep. So being able to get out of that mindset of, oh yeah, it's definitely not me. It's got to be something else. Take the time, adjust your parallax, make sure you can read those conditions and adjust as necessary.
Okay, another newbie question, because a lot of people haven't heard of parallax. That's not a world in 3-gun or, fun rifle time. What is parallax? What does that mean to adjust it?
Okay, so parallax, what that means is you're adjusting the internal lens of that scope to make sure that the target you are looking at is perfectly in focus. If your parallax is off, it can essentially give you a false image, if you want to use that terminology, where you're going to miss that target.
Yeah, my favorite stages are when you have to go 30, 60, 100 and dial or dial hold and parallax adjust.
So what you can do, so you can actually cheat on that.
Okay.
And I don't want to say cheat, but you can game that. So what I do, if I did 30, 60, 90, I actually would split that difference. I would dial my parallax for 60.
Okay.
And I would kind of, for the 30 yards, I would back out of my magnification and focus on my crosshairs, and my target would be a little bit blurry, and I typically would hit it.
Right. Okay.
Yep. Because what the parallax is doing is not only making sure that you can see the target clearly, but it's also ensuring that when you're engaging that target, you're shooting at what you're actually seeing.
Okay, that makes sense. Boom, learn something new.
There you go.
How should people prepare for dialing in parallax and knowing their holds? Is that just something they need to dry fire at home?
So that's what first thing you got to know is you got to know what your dope is. If you don't know what your dope is, then good luck. I've seen a lot of guys going out there and just winging it and still have the time of their life, and they're missing every target. And they're loving it. They're like, this is so much fun. I'm like, this is awesome. Yeah, biggest thing is know your velocities. And then you can practice doing dry fire practice. You can go to a range, practice that. If you have the ability to do it in your backyard, I'm envious. But yes, practice. Even if that means sending rounds down range or dry fire practice.
Yeah. And going back to wind, so wind still matters for 22 a lot.
Oh, wind matters significantly for 22. Let's see. At 22, like I said earlier, you can have a 6 mile an hour wind, a full value wind coming from right to left, and you're holding a mill of wind at 100 yards.
Wow.
I mean, you can. And I might be off on my wind numbers, but yeah, it's nothing for us at 100 yards to hold easily a mill of wind.
Okay. Yeah. So how does someone learn to read wind?
Practice. Actually, is shoot F class.
Is that like, is there classification levels?
No, F class is solely a, you can do it, it's either a belly match or it's a bench match essentially, but you're shooting at 600 yards or 1,000 yards. So this is now shifting into center fire. And all they do, and they have wind flags, they have sighting targets, and you essentially learn to truly how to read wind.
Okay.
And that definitely translates over into rimfire.
Where do they hold those? That's something I have never heard of.
I know they have one at Strategic Edge in Chapel Hill, Tennessee, which is probably for you. So that's about an hour, maybe 30 minutes south of Nashville.
That's not bad.
No, but F class matches are all over the place.
Okay.
I believe they do. So you can also do bench rest, but typically bench rest for rimfire is at 50 and 75 yards.
Okay.
Don't quote me on that.
Yeah.
But honestly, it's just getting out there and doing it.
The title for this episode is going to be "Don't Quote Me."
Don't quote me on that. Because I know that somebody's going to go and sees this podcast and they're going to be like, "No, Dominic, that's not true. No, Dominic, that's not true." So for all you you typer snipers out there,
yeah.
No, I call them typer snipers. That's why I said don't quote me on that.
I'm sorry, everyone who's been on the podcast. This is my favorite. Don't quote me on that.
Hey, you gotta have fun doing this.
This is really fun. Okay, so all right, new shooter. They sign up on practice score. They show up. What should their expectations be? Kind of going back to like you're gonna time out, but what other expectations should they have?
Oh, to have fun.
Okay.
That should be their only expectations, to have fun. Okay. I've had a couple of guys that have shot my matches, and they're special forces guys. And when I tell them, like, they're like, "Hey man, what are you shooting?" I was like, "I'm shooting 22." And then they kind of like scoff at me. They're like, "Oh, it's a 22. How hard can that be?" And they'll come by and shoot one of my matches, and they're gonna be like, "I just had a nice slice of humble pie."
Oh yeah.
And I was like, "Yeah, it's not as easy as you think," because they'll think that we're shooting at like 50 yards, big old targets, and I'm like, "No, man. There's times where we're shooting sub MOA targets, and it's not as easy as you think."
I hate the spinners that the stick and the dot and
love the spinner. Spinner's my favorite.
But it's the same size. And look, there's no circle. The circle is the stick size. Yeah. Like a quarter of an inch.
Taking consider of your barrel twist and kind of hold like half a tenth, and then you'll be all right.
Yeah. Okay. People don't know that either. Barrel twist, that matters. Hold the opposite way of the rifling.
Well, no, barrel twist is the same direction.
Well, if it's going to go this to the right, you need to hold left.
Yes, correct.
That's what I'm saying. You're going to hold opposite of the rifle. Yeah.
Well, if you get a good ballistic solver, it takes all that into consideration.
Yeah. Okay. So then we talked about it a little bit, but rules are important. And I think I already know this, like 90% of people do not read rules. I know pro level people who still don't know the rules. Drives me nuts. So let's get the basics out of the way, because nobody's going to read the rules. What should they know to do at an NRL22 match?
Read the rules. Biggest thing is safety. Understand what the safety requirements are of, basic marksmanship, as well as what the requirements are of that specific range. And just making sure you're overall safe. Like for us, when we do a lot of transitions from different props, like tank traps, ladders, chairs, going to prone, the biggest thing is, if you're shooting a bolt action, is that bolt must be up and back to the rear with the, essentially the chamber cleared. Because what that does is prevents a negligent discharge. With the semi-auto, what we do, and is also in center fire, is the shooter must mechanically safe their rifle and audibly yell safe, and then they transition. And then what we do is we make sure we tell them, and sometimes we demonstrate this to new shooters, is don't break the 120 rule. Like for my range, I say 180 to 120 to 180. Don't break that. If you go past 180, you're going to get DQ'd, because that's a safety consideration.
Now,
but at the end of the day,
the 180 applies up and down. I've seen a lot of new shooters that can't really lift it because it's heavy, right? And they go up.
Yeah, and that's perfectly fine. It's perfectly fine as long as their bolt's back or their rifle is mechanically safe. Okay. Then it's perfectly fine going up. But you don't want to go 180 degrees, and next thing you know, you're flagging a shooter that's shooting a stage, 10 feet next to you. That's the reason why I typically say 120 degrees, because that ensures that you're not flagging somebody.
Okay.
But at the end of the day, they just need to go out, read the rules, and go to a match. Go to the match. The rules, just know what is allowed, what isn't allowed, what's good sportsmanship, things like that. But the biggest thing is safety, and you're going to get there with just going to these matches. Yeah, absolutely. And I'm sure, just like any other community, that NRL22 is the same, where sharing gear is going to be there, at least local matches, probably major ones too, is that you can probably borrow a spare mag or mag pouch if you need one. I don't know. Bags for sure. Bags. Oh, absolutely. Without a doubt. So we actually have that written in our rules. Cool. That it is highly encouraged that competitors share their gear, because at the end of the day, you're not going to go and buy this widget just because you see it on Facebook. But then again, some people might, and you not like it. So like anytime somebody comes to my match or somebody goes to another match, we always tell them, hey, you're more than welcome to borrow any of our gear, with the exception of our rifle and our ammo, to use. If you want to use my, my Arca plate, if you want to use this bipod, if you want to use this bag, by all means use it. Because at the end of the day, you want to make them feel welcomed. You want them to feel comfortable. You want them to feel comfortable asking questions, and you want them to have the ability to use new equipment that they didn't know even existed, or they thought about purchasing, but they just weren't sure. And now you've solidified that by allowing them to use your gear.
Yeah. So my rule of thumb, and my students know this when I teach, it doesn't matter what it is. If somebody offers you to let you try something, I don't care if it's pistol, I don't care if it's gear, your answer is yes. It is never no. It is never maybe. It is yes, because you need to put your hand on everything. You need to pull every trigger. You need to try every piece of gear, because you'll be surprised at what you learn. The worst thing you can do is have a drawer, I'm looking at this, full of holsters and mag pouches and shit that you don't use.
Oh yeah, I got plenty of those drawers. You're like, why did I ever use that?
Garbage, such garbage. I can't give it away. Like I have given a lot.
I have stuff like that too. I'm like, how is this on the prize table still?
That's horrible. Going back to questions. You said that perfectly. What questions should people start asking match directors or fellow competitors within reason, and not while they're about to shoot? Sure. What questions?
So big thing is, why did they choose that piece of equipment?
Why?
You know, why did you decide to choose this piece of equipment over that piece of equipment? What makes that piece of equipment so great? What makes it not so great? Why did you build your position that way? How did you engage those targets when, you know, you have 2 minutes for NRL22, but we have 5 targets to shoot and we have to go near to far, far to near? Why did you decide to hold over versus dialing? Asking those questions on how an individual breaks down a stage is absolutely crucial in a beginner's learning on how to actually engage those targets.
Brilliant.
And that's the reason why in NRL22, like at my my club and a lot of these other clubs, if you are a brand new shooter and this is your first match, you are shooting last on every stage.
That's good.
So you can see how everybody else is shooting.
Yeah. Okay, that's awesome. I like the why thing. I think a lot of people don't hear this enough, but like if someone says, oh, you have to buy this or you need to buy this, and they don't ask the why question, they go out and buy it. Well, they didn't know why. It's because that person has a bigger hand size than you, or it's because, you know, their belt holds more weight. It's like, well, it's not going to work for you. So knowing that's important.
Yep.
Okay, let's talk about the stages, because that's the fun part. So there's unique stage descriptions. So remember going and it's, oh, you start strong side, then you go weak side, then you have to reload during the course of fire. And then my favorite is when you can't move on to the next target until the one before it's hit, and you can't hit that son of a bitch. So so you go 8 rounds and you know, great, the max I can probably get is 3 hits now, maybe even just the one.
Hey, look, I've been there.
Yeah. So can you talk about some of the stages that shooters will see at these matches?
It's endless. So you will always see prone stages. You will always see shooting off of barricades. You will always see that every month. You might see a combination of prone and barricade at the same time. Last year we did take out offhand shooting, but we have implemented it back in this year, and we're doing it like once a quarter or something like that. So you will see offhand shooting as well. Typically those targets are rather large in size. But you know, for us, we're shooting off of typically cinder blocks, tank traps, rooftops, 55-gallon barrels, 5-gallon buckets, 2-gallon buckets, a sawhorse. There's a rope in there. There's a chair in there. There's a ladder, which is absolutely my favorite to shoot off of. And I think that's probably about it for the standard prop pack.
So real quick, I read that a lot of people that were talking about it, they don't know that when you go to the NRL22 match, a couple things or website, sorry, you already put the stage descriptions on for the month. So that's what we're talking about here. The courses of fire are already laid out. You can check them out. You can read them, and you have the designated exactly what they need to go buy. I love the description. You can buy this at Home Depot. This is the code. Yep. Thank you.
Yeah, so we make that easier because you have a lot of these match directors that are, you know, hauling their target packs, their props in a car. So that's one thing Tyler wanted to make sure was that anybody that has a Prius, essentially, I'm not knocking Priuses,
yes,
or anybody
yes, we are.
Yeah, we are. And anybody that's got a Prius is able to take essentially their match to their club and set it up. Now, these props that I'm talking about, that's the standard 5-stage NRL22 stages. You will have props that match directors put on for bonus stages. So like for me, I always do 3 bonus stages each month, and we're shooting off cattle gates, wobble tables. We're shooting off of spools. What else do I got?
Okay. You want to make sure the dick move they made for mine?
What?
They did the hole with the target behind the hole that you had to shoot through the hole, but if you hit the steel on the outside and not the target, then it's a negative point. You can go negatives, but then if you hit the one in the circle, then you get positive. So I ended up on a 0, flat 0, no bonus points. But my favorite part is it was orange, and then after people shot through it, it was the same color as the front steel.
Yeah, so now steel targets, oh, don't get me started on that. I got like 7 different types of KYLs where I got a holy moly rack where it's a 4-inch circle, but the circle is completely cut out, and you have about this much of a diameter, and it gets smaller and smaller, and you got to hit the edges. Ugh. So most people, they'll aim for center. These targets, you have to aim edges.
Edges, yeah, donut.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, you're shooting the edges of a donut. Yeah, so, and shout out to my guy, Seth from D&M Targets. He's the one who always cuts all my targets.
Seth, you're evil. You
That's
say
right. Oh no, I have a holy moly rack. I have an evil holy moly rack. Yeah, it's amazing.
It's cool. It's cool. Sorry, I interrupted. I had to mention that.
Good.
Okay, so yeah, the different stages. You want to keep going into what they can expect.
Yeah, so different stages, like I said, prone and barricades. You will see a lot of near to far, far to near. I would say about 90% of the time we have a stage that includes some sort of support side shooting. So we always tell them, practice your support side, because I've seen guys that will get down there and be like, man, this is the first time I've ever done this. This is horrible. I need to practice this more. And at that point, you're like, yeah, it happens. But like you mentioned, yeah, so the week prior to each new month, we publish the course of fire. Everybody can look at it. They can dry fire, excuse me, they can dry fire practice that thing. Or if they have the ability to do it in their backyard, they can practice the hell out of that thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
But at the end of the day, it doesn't count until you go to a match.
Yep. Beep.
Yep. Huh? Yep.
Oh man. Yeah. So you've already mentioned the props. That was a big thing. Actually, my buddy has private range, and afterwards I spent some time with a sandbag and a barricade and a ironed out chair and all of that good stuff. So these props are stuff that you can, like, again, probably find at a yard sale on the side of the road. It looks like a junkyard, and again, Home Depot. So like, this is stuff that you can practice at home.
Yeah, I mean, like one prop I forgot to mention was a tire. And hell, I went to a used freaking Bob's freaking tire shop. I was like, hey man, this is what I'm doing. You got any used tires? He's like, dude, I got a yard full of used tires. Take as many as you want. I'm like, I just need like 3, dude. That's all I need.
So my friend is the manager at a car wash, and I was straight up, I came back from a class, it's pretty recent. I was like, yo, I need 5-gallon barrels to put in my backyard. She's like, say no more, because her husband shoots. We both shoot. And I was like, yep, I need dry fire. I need props.
Yep. We're
not weird people at all.
No, yeah, well, the shooting community, we're a special bunch. As us Texans would say, bless your heart. So
oh god.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go into the dry fire.
Sure.
What does that routine look like? And like you said, all the things that they should practice. Let's go over each one.
Sure. So for me, dry fire practice looks a lot like it does for a regular match. So I specifically use the DST Precision DFAT Gen 2, which is pretty awesome tool that you can use. What it is, it's a lens that goes on the objective lens of your scope, and it allows you to essentially zoom in on targets on a target range card, essentially, with full magnification. Which is crazy. From 12 to 15 feet away. So Troy Tyson, we send him the course of fire prior to it being published, and he creates a range card specifically for the monthly course of fire. So you can download that, tape that bad boy on your garage door or on your wall in your house, hook up your DFAT, and practice your stages. So let's say you're wanting to shoot the tank trap stage or the ladder stage, and you're like, I'm going to try this completely different. Put your shooting buzzer on, or your shot timer, or your phone, turn it on and try it 5 different ways and practice that over and over and over again. Take some notes. And then if it requires you doing holdovers, practice doing holdovers, practice dialing, practice using a different bag, practice using a bump pillow, whatever you want to use, that's the time to do it. When I did the NRL22 survey, let me pull that up real quick. Yes, I know you're all about stats.
Awesome. Get the inside scoop almost.
No, I've already published all this.
We don't know that.
I asked, I was like, hey, how often do you dry fire practice? 58%, 36% out of I think it was like 116, I think, or something like that. They did it 1 to 2 times a week. Let's see, 4% did it 3 to 4 times a week. 1% did it 5 to 6 times a week. 1% did daily. 44% never, and then 14% did it right before an actual match.
I'm sorry, I love the procrastinator bunch.
Oh yeah, yeah. I'm one of those guys. I used to typically do it like once or twice a week. And then here lately, I'll do it, like a couple of days before the match. Sometimes I don't. Sometimes I'll just go to a match and be like, all right, what are we shooting? Crap, I probably should have practiced that a little bit.
That's the thing with these games, like you can actually get prepared in advance. Like a lot of our 3-gun matches, you show up and you show up blind. You have no idea.
That's how the NRL22 X matches are. A lot of times the match director doesn't even publish the course of fire till the day of.
Okay.
Or they might publish it, a couple of days in advance. So like that's what I did with mine. I published mine a week in advance, but I didn't give out target sizes. But I couldn't, because all of mine were, airplanes. They were German little Nazi helmets, bombs, grenades. Mine was a World War II theme. And I know a lot of people are going to, always scold me for this, but I had very, very small targets. And I'm sorry, guys. I still am sorry about that. So.
I have a dumb question then. Is there a walkthrough day for y'all's matches?
No.
Okay. That's what I thought.
Well, what do you mean walkthrough?
Okay, like for anybody else, like USPSA 3-gun bigger matches, you show up and you can actually see the stages and the target sizes and the colors, and I mean that you walk the stages essentially. I know most 22 matches, you don't use 10 bays, or do you? I don't know.
That's dependent on the range. You can have a range that only has bays and it's one stage per bay. My local range, I do everything underneath an awning, and I do 8 stages underneath there. And I mean, we're talking about maybe 30 yards wide, and I can do 8 stages without a problem.
Okay. So could someone the day before show up and go look at each of those stages?
Could they? Sure. All depends on how the range is set up. It all depends on, are they shooting an X match? Are they shooting a NRL22 match? Most match directors that I've encountered, they typically set up the morning of or the night before.
Okay.
Because they're using a local range. Rarely do I see people doing this at their house where they have it set up the entire time. NRL22 X matches, there are times where you can go the day before, and it's like a range day, and you can engage targets out to distance, but you can't shoot off of props. You can't shoot the targets that are out there. So they get to see it, but they don't necessarily get to use it and engage those targets.
Yeah. Okay. That's fair. That's something different.
Every match you go to is unique in and of itself.
That's kind of cool though.
Yeah.
So if you could tell yourself, this is you talking to you, something early on to cut down the learning curve for you as a shooter, what would it have been?
For me, it would have been learn how to build a solid position quickly, master the fundamentals, and then buy good equipment from the beginning and learn to read wind.
Those aren't the small tasks at all.
No, not at all. I mean, we're talking about thousands of dollars right there. Or, I mean, it can be. I mean, the more you evolve in this sport, the more creative you'll get, the more you'll get to experience different pieces of equipment. And you're like, oh, I gotta have that. And then, this company comes out with this new widget and you're like, I gotta buy that. Even though you don't need it, you still end up buying it. And I've done that quite a few times.
I love it. Goodness. So if someone, actually, let's start with the difference between, can you explain the difference between NRL22 and the PRS, like the biggest differences, and why the 22 world is a good place to start for someone that wants to go up into those bigger competitions, bigger caliber, I'll say.
So I wouldn't say it's not necessarily a foundation, because I've seen quite a few center fire people from PRS and NRL come into NRL22 and just get hammered. Because it's a completely different world. Even though you're using the exact same equipment, you're just using a smaller bullet and smaller targets. But ultimately, yes, it is a great foundation and a great stepping stone to get into center fire. Because in 22, it teaches you how to, when I won't say it teaches you, but you greatly see the effects of what wind has on a bullet as close as 100 yards.
Yeah.
Whereas in center fire, if I'm shooting 500 yards, I might have to hold a 10th or two at most. Now, there are times when, if wind is just, 15, 20 mile an hour wind, you might have to hold a mil, right?
Yeah.
But in 22s, if you're getting 10 mile an hour winds at 100 yards, you're holding off plate, guaranteed.
You're screwed.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
That's a hurricane. No.
You're not going to have, unless you're in Utah where that's normal for them.
Right.
If you're here in the Midwest or in the South where it's not normal, you're probably going to not have a very, very enjoyable day.
No, Utah, that's why Utah breeds them,
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So like I was saying earlier, it's a great stepping stone, great foundation, transitioning into center fire because you use all the exact same gear. A lot of the real competitive shooters, like my buddy Levi Wilson, he actually is a phenomenal rimfire shooter and never shot a day in his life in center fire, and goes and signs up for the gap grind. You familiar with that match?
Yep, actually. So that's the one that my friend that had the Tika, she started at. It's actually in 2 weeks or whatever. And I think I'm just go watch and do the applied ballistics lab to my rifles.
Yep, which is great, by the way.
Yeah.
But so all he ever really shot was, a little bit of center fire here and there, nothing competitive, but he mainly competed in NRL22 and won the amateur version.
Okay, for people watching, that's not fair.
But Levi Wilson, he's a naturally talented shooter.
That is so cool though. Like zero expectations, probably ish. Have fun, win the whole thing.
Yeah, and he's the most humble guy, one of the most humble guys you'll ever meet. And his goal is like, yeah, man, I'm trying to go win the match, but somebody else wins it, they win it. But his goal is always to go there and win.
Well, and he's got the skill level. So the other thing, setting your expectations in any sport, right? So it's so easy to get into these worlds and there's so much to learn, like you were mentioning, and people are like, okay, I gotta be good. I have to be good. I'm good with a pistol. Then I have to be good here. I'm good with a different rifle, right? And they compare themselves to other people. Like I'm comparing myself to Dominic. Well, I didn't put in the time, the effort, the work, the 7,000 different guns, right? So it's easy to get discouraged, I think, too, in long range.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. I've gotten discouraged numerous times when I'm competing, when I'm competing in a pro level match, and I'm like, man, I shot like crap today. And then I really got to set back and be like, okay, how much prep work did you put into this? How many matches have you shot compared to these pros who do this over and over and over, not just local matches, but they're traveling the country shooting 2-day matches, and they're really freaking good.
Yeah. So setting your expectations of what level, like he can expect to win, right? So he's in contention for that.
Oh yeah.
No.
Sometimes maybe. On the rimfire side, yeah. Center fire, no.
Are you going to gap grind this year?
I'm not.
Dang it. Okay. I tried to get Matt Talon Hornback to go too. I was like, come on, dude. You need to go to Tennessee. He's never been to Tennessee.
Yep. Yeah, Matt's probably got some field exercise he has to go to.
That's true. So when you practice live fire, this is something us rifle people do or pistol people do. Do you practice with paper or do you still practice with steel targets?
So I first get a good 0 at 50 yards, and then I also get a good group at 100 yards. But I'll just practice with steel. Okay. What I'll do is if I'm practicing the actual course of fire, which I rarely do because I don't have time. But when I do have the ability, I'll actually put smaller targets out. So if at 100 yards it's saying 3 inches, I might do 2 inches.
Yep.
So that I really focus on those fundamentals.
That's badass. That's perfect. Look at those little nuggets. Have you taken any classes for people?
I have. So my buddy Clark, I took his class, and I'm always learning. Like every once in a while, I'll phone Chase Stroud from DI Precision and pick his brain. But no, I've never been to actual formal classes. Okay. Probably should go. So shout out to anybody that wants to hook me up. Willing to go. It's just they can be so expensive.
Yeah. I think just learning to read wind, I think would be a thing. Or like I take the Kestrel classes. That's one thing that you do for free online.
Yep.
So there's stuff out there. And I'm sure YouTube is, God, YouTube is plentiful, right?
Yeah.
Learning from the right
But
people.
the issue with YouTube is that a credible source?
Yeah.
Is that individual credible person to get this information from? So I think when it comes to read and win, anybody that shoots an ELR, those are the guys you probably want to talk to, because I mean, they're engaging targets, a mile and out. So I would venture to guess that they're probably not bad at reading wind.
Yeah, for fun. Good Lord. The other thing that I like about NRL22 and stuff, well, specifically NRL22, is that you can see how you shoot with shooters across the country and the world, maybe, or just national.
No, across the world, I believe, because we have an international club as well.
Okay, yeah. So in USPSA, I don't know if you've heard of Go Fast, Don't Suck.
Yes.
So he's got the new postal match. The postal match is brilliant. So he sends all of the stages to all the match directors for USPSA. I'm trying to get Steve Marmaduke to convince our match director to do it. But then you all shoot it as a club with same target, same everything. And you see how you do with everybody across the world without having to travel. Hey.
Yeah. So, and that's exactly how these NRL22 is that the course of fire is a national course of fire. Everybody shoots the exact same course of fire that entire month. And then when the NRL posts in our advisors page for the match directors review, we get to see how every single person in the country scored.
Yeah, that's neat.
But now at the end of the day, that really doesn't matter, because you could be in Utah where winds are 10, 50 miles an hour and the max score is 500 and you're shooting at 350.
Yeah.
But I shoot out here in Tennessee where there's like 1 to 2 mile an hour winds and I'm shooting a 450.
Yeah.
Am I a better shooter? No. Probably not, because those guys are really learning how to read wind, and there's no wind here. So comparing others from different clubs that are not even geographically located where you are really doesn't benefit anybody. So what you're doing is you're either competing against yourself or you're competing everybody at your club.
Okay, cool. Hey, that's a good tidbit. I didn't think about that. What's been your favorite match that you've ever shot?
So can't really narrow it down to one, but if I had to pick, so far, besides this past year's national championship out in Yahaka, Nebraska, it would probably be our buddy Mike Milliken's NRL22 X match out in Eagle Eye this past February. So everybody around the country got hit with that big old freak snowstorm. Well, he decided to continue on with his match and have it anyways. So it was a field match. There were no squads. There were no stage descriptions. There was no round count. You showed up. You had, I think it was 3 minutes. You had to find 10 targets, range 10 targets, and engage 10 targets. And
sorry.
Yeah, that sucked. Stupid fun though. It was probably my funnest match I've shot.
So I was shooting in that same weather. So I moved from Florida in December to Tennessee. So February, and I went up to Kentucky. It was the ice storm from hell.
You're like, this sucks. Is this normal?
So I was using gloves. Well, my dumbass got the ones with the tips to text, right? Okay, that's not the right thing. So for shotgun loading, that tip would go into the actual shotgun port. Oh God, it was a cluster. And like keeping your body temperature and your energy up in cold is harder than in heat.
Yeah. So the good thing is I have a lot of good cold weather gear. And a lot of hunters, they know how to dress in cold weather. Because we typically end up being in deer stands and whatnot. So we know how to stay warm for the most part. But I had to shed layers at his match because I wore like the Army Michelin man suit. And I was like, I am not going to be an ounce of cold.
Yeah.
So I ended up having to shed some gear. And yeah, it was good. It was a great match.
So that's a little bit different though. Like you can't shoot as a fluke ball with a shotgun because there's no movement in the arms.
No. Well, I mean, it's the same with us. Because I mean, you got to manipulate the rifle, manipulate your turrets, your magnifier and whatnot.
Yeah.
And then depending on the stage, you might start overheating, or if you end up taking your jacket off and it's like 25 degrees, you might start shivering really quick, and that's really going to screw you up.
Oh, good. We had rifles going bump fire because of all the padding.
Wow.
Triggers are light. Okay, so talking about you now too. So what gun and scope, I know you mentioned, I think at the beginning, like, did you start out with?
So I started off with a custom built 1022 and a Vortex Razor Gen 1, which I still have and I still use it. Love that thing. We've made a lot of tweaks to it. By we, I mean Clark. And that is probably the coolest 1022 I will ever own. And my buddies keep calling it my Gucci Ruger. Just because it's fancy, I guess, it's bougie. But I've upgraded. It's definitely not your cookie cutter 1022, that's for sure. That's what I started off with. Like I said earlier, I upgraded from that to a CZ457 because I had a 60-degree throw, and that's what my center fire is. And then Voodoo came out with a 60-degree throw, so I bought that one.
Yeah, and then you got your Collis glass.
No, I actually put my Collis glass on my 1022 after I first got it because I wanted, I was used to that for my center fire.
Yeah.
And then I moved that to my CZ457 and then eventually to now my Voodoo.
Yeah, which is cool. I mean, that definitely is a progression of price, I think, a little bit. So like, how important is it for people to run what they got or get started with something and just see if they like it before they go out and go nuts, unless they're, millionaires?
Yeah, I mean, so I highly ill-advise having somebody who's just getting into this, not sure if they want to do this, to go buy a Voodoo and a $3,500 optic. I highly do not recommend doing that unless you got more money than you do sense. I recommend, asking a bunch of people. Go to a match that has loaner rifles. Let them, let somebody borrow their rifle. I've known quite a few people. They're like, hey man, come shoot my rifle.
Yeah.
Here's some ammo. Just pay me for the ammo. Come shoot it.
Yeah.
And do that. Like I said earlier, a CZ457, I think the cheapest one you can get is like $450. You can get a RPR for like $300. You can get yourself a 10. I've seen people take 1022 takedowns and shoot with them, little $100-$200 rifle and have the freaking blast with it. And it's just a natural progression. My buddy Tony Ely, I think he started off with a 1022 and then he upgraded to some sort of bolt action, I believe it was. And now he shoots a Bagara B14R and an MPA chassis, bought himself a Night Force attacker scope. And yeah, I mean, he full on jumped both feet in and he keeps cursing at me. He's like, thanks, man. Thanks for getting me addicted to another sport. Cause he's a big time USPSA shooter.
Gotcha. Yeah. No, yeah. I think I highly recommend people bringing one person into whatever sport. So if you have to continue the financial strain.
Absolutely. You gotta share that struggle.
Love it. Okay. For you shared that the offhand's kind of your like weakness. What's like your favorite?
No, offhand's not my weakness.
Oh, what is?
Offhand. Yeah. Sorry. Offhand is my weakness.
Okay. And then the favorite, what's your favorite stages to shoot or the ones that you can shoot lights out?
Prone 6-inch target at 25 yards. I can shoot that all day. I'm just kidding. I'd say my favorite position is probably anything support side. For whatever reason, I'm just able to get a better position support side. I like near to far, far to near stages. And anything off of a prop.
Okay. And the ladder's your favorite.
Except the tank trap. Freaking hate the tank trap.
I can't say the word I want to say, but I effing hate those. They show up in 3-gun, they show up in 2-gun, they've showed up in everything, and I can't figure them out. Yeah,
no, it making sure one thing that you have to make sure though with these rifles is that they're balanced perfectly.
Yeah. Ugh, tank traps. Okay, good. So there's some out there. Okay, so for you too, like, how has this NRL22 like changed your life and unlike anything you've ever shot before? Like, why is this your thing?
I think it's just mainly because it's fun. The camaraderie that you have with a lot of these individuals, you can get people from all different walks of life. Yeah. I got buddies that are pharmacists. I got buddies that are mechanics. And in any other, social group, a lot of times these individuals probably would never meet.
Yeah.
But in this sport, it doesn't matter if you're a welder, if you're a cardiothoracic surgeon, you're going to meet. You all have the same, say what?
You make that word up?
Cardiothoracic surgeon? No.
Not real?
That's a real thing. Yeah. That's a heart doctor inside the chest.
Oh, that's a cardiovascular.
No, that's a cardiothoracic surgeon. That's the guy that opens somebody up, works on their heart. Anyways, so you have anybody from different walks of life that is coming together and pretty much enjoying the suck together, or building friendships in this shooting sport.
Yeah. What's the youngest shooter you've seen or met or heard about, and what's the oldest?
Youngest I think was probably 8. If no, so younger than that. It's either 7 or 8. And that was at Nationals. I think his name was Colby Hewitt, something like that. He actually shot at Nationals.
That's cool.
And it was freaking awesome to see this kid shoot.
Wow.
Oldest, I want to say it's like 70 years old.
Awesome.
Yep.
Awesome.
Now with that, we have also, and I'm sure you read that in the rules, is we have old gun / adaptive class. And then
guns, right? Air guns is a thing.
Air guns is a thing, yes.
Okay. Yeah.
But we have the old guns division or the adaptive for people that don't meet the old guns age requirement, is because we have, older gentlemen, older women that just can't get up and down like some of us younger folks can. So what we do now here, the last several months we've done this, is we put recommendations in for match directors, instead of them going up and down on the ladder, from the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th rung, excuse me, we'll typically tell them, be like, hey, you're going to engage the target the same way, but you're only going to shoot from the 5th rung and the 4th rung, and you're alternating between that.
Yeah.
Or instead of prone, you're going to shoot off of a bench.
Okay.
Yeah. And we'll do that a lot of time with young guns as well. That just got a tickle in my throat. Excuse me. With young guns, where we'll have them start in position, or we'll kind of modify it a little bit, so it's just more enjoyable for them.
Yeah, it's not fun if you don't make it fun, for sure. I like that. Like, there's coaching too. I don't know at the national level, but there is, locally all the time.
Yeah, at the local level, without a doubt. I mean, that's the time for you to learn. I mean, like we'll give win calls now. Like our season shooters, or if they're missing,
you're just ragging on them.
Oh yeah. Yeah, we definitely do. Especially my buddy Bill Mickey. Every time we miss a shot, he'll be like, "Nope," and he'll make that abundantly clear that you missed it. But if you're constantly missing, we'll give you a win call. Be like, "Hey man, you're like a 10th or 2 off left edge, or hold more wind, check dope," things like that. But for brand new shooters, no, we're constantly giving them wind corrections.
Yeah, that's awesome. Kevin Suffrage is like that.
Oh yeah.
Pissed if he misses one round for the whole entire match. That's fun. Fun. So do you have any recommendations, kind of wrapping this up, on books, classes, videos, or maybe even people that they should follow online to learn about NRL22?
Yeah, sure. Definitely look at our NRL22 members page. We have a lot of cool information that gets put on there. Michael Shea here recently wrote an awesome book called Rimfire Revolution, A Complete Guide to Modern 22 Rifles. Phenomenal book. And he actually ended up getting the shooter profiles information of every single NRL22 shooter out there, and about what gear they were using, what optics they were using, rifles, barrels, glass, spotting scopes. He did a phenomenal job on how far we've come from our JCPenney 1022s from 1970 whatever, all the way to voodoos and onshoots. When it comes to videos, there's a crap load of YouTube videos out there where people will record themselves doing the NRL22 stages. I know Jonathan Zielinski, he's a sponsored voodoo shooter. He does that quite a bit, where he'll do pretty much a stage breakdown And what's cool about it is he'll record himself shooting, and then he has what's called a trigger cam, where it mounts on the actual scope, so you can see exactly what he's aiming at. And sometimes, if it's just right, you can actually see the flight of the bullet impacting the target.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. At the end of the day, though, the best way for an individual to learn is go to a match. I get that asked a lot. Hey, should I go to a match and just watch, or should I just compete? Nope, just straight up compete. Because at the end of the day, you're not going to know what the individual did or why they did that until you do it and be like, hey man, why did you do it that way? And then when you shoot it, you're like, oh, I know why you did it that way. It just makes more sense at that point.
Yeah.
So yeah, the biggest thing is for a shooter, at the end of the day, they just need to go out there and shoot.
Absolutely.
And don't be intimidated.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially when you have the Utah shooters.
Yeah, those guys.
The other thing I like about, I forgot about this part, is like the custom rifle builds too are very friendly to left-handed shooters.
Yeah, without a doubt. I know there's a lot of companies out there. I know Bagara, they just came out with their left-handed shooter, their left-handed rifles. Voodoo for sure. 1022s, obviously, those are ambidextrous, really doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's quite a few Remington 700 platforms or like that are left-handed friendly.
Yeah, which is really cool.
It is.
Sorry,
or just be a right-handed shooter.
I know. I have so many lefty friends that, well, they get screwed at USPSA matches when there's like
You mean wrong-handed shooters?
wrong-handed, but it's sad. No, but I'm like all about equality, fairness, but like a wall, right? And you have a huge lean out to the right, and the target's here. How's a lefty gonna do that?
Hey, you better pie better.
That would suck. If I was lefty, I would make some more.
Practice more, shoot more.
Yeah. Any final shot or any final thoughts that you want to leave listeners with?
So biggest things for just simply have fun. Don't try the game to stages. People will always game stages, but don't try to game them. Just shoot the stage, learn from it, and improve each time you go to compete. Every time you go to a range or every time you go to a match, learn from it. Put that in your mental toolbox and pull it out whenever you need it.
Well said. So how can people find you on social media, Instagram, Facebook? Is there a website? How can they?
Me specifically, you can find me at NRL22 Fort Campbell. I'm on Facebook and Practice Score. That's how you find me. I'm on a lot of the NRL22 Facebook forums out there. So all the major ones that I mentioned earlier, the NRL22 members, the competitive ones, the match one, I'm on every single one of those.
Okay.
Yep.
And then the coordinator position, do you have an email?
Yeah, it's actually Dominick Thompson 1 at Yahoo. I don't have an official NRL22 email.
That's horrible. It's horrible. Yeah. So reach out.
Hint, Brittany.
This has been a great show. Oh my goodness. Thank you.
But so shout out to the sponsors. I'm not sponsored by anyone other than myself and my wife. But definitely want to do a big shout out to the NRL22 executive team, the support staff. Without them, we would not be able to do what we're doing every month and have everybody enjoy this. And then definitely to the two guys that have taught me and gotten me into this addictive sport is, and how to become a match director is Travis Wall and Clark Cornett.
That's awesome. Actually, good point. And I didn't bring this up, and I think it should be addressed. How can people get involved at their local level, national level? God, I can't talk. How can they, more support the sport and do that?
So to more support is essentially to go shoot matches, go support your match directors, help them with setup, help them with teardowns. If you don't, and I get this question a lot, is like, I wish we had a club where I lived. Yeah. Simple answer. Go engage your local club owner and see if they'll be willing to start an NRL22 club as you as the match director. They sometimes have funds where they say, hey, I can allocate $700 a year for you. And that'll at least get you the target pack and the props. Okay. And then you can run your matches. For me, I was not that fortunate. Everything for me has been out of pocket.
Yeah. but you love it.
Oh, it's a labor of love.
Yeah, it is. Now, the other thing too is ROing. Can we explain to all of the people that hate the tablet how stupid easy it is to score an NRL22 competition?
Yeah, so actually I do want to bring that up. Thank you for bringing that up. So our buddy Levi Sanderson, he's on the NRL22 support staff, and every single month, when we look at a course of fire, and I mean, when someone submits a course of fire, I look at it, I work with that individual closely and saying, hey, look, this stage is too gimmicky, or this doesn't meet the rules, or hey, I recommend this and recommend that. And then once we finally get that product, the advisor team, which is the executive staff and the support staff, we all comb through it and we're like, hey, we need to reword this one, or we need to do this and this and this, and then we refine it. But what Levi does is he will actually take that course of fire, build a downloadable practice score template, and essentially all you do is just download the course of fire, hit the link on the first page, and you download that. You make sure you got to clone it on your tablet and then rename it. And all the stages are there for you.
Oh,
so we've handed everything to a match director where the only thing that they have to do is show up, put targets out, download everything, and run the match.
Yeah, it's really simple. I don't know any other organization that does all that like that perfectly, I guess. I don't know.
No, we are the only organization that pretty much hands everything to you, where you can run a very successful match.
Yeah, with minimal props, minimal entry, minimal barriers. I mean, there's a lot that, minimal space on a range. I mean, we're talking about 100 yards, which is really not bad for most ranges to have that. Thousands more difficult. That's why
Yeah, I mean, so now you can do, so we have two options now. You can do option 1 and option 2, where option 2, because Tyler's pretty good about asking all the match directors, be like, hey, what do you guys want to see different and whatnot? And we listen to our match directors because at the end of the day, they are our customers. They are our end users, to include the shooters.
Yeah.
And they just wanted to have the ability to go longer distances. So now with option 2, a match director can say, hey, for the second stage, we're going to do option 2 and we're shooting it this way. And so with option 2, we can have shorter part times, we can have mag changes, and they are within 200 yards. Typically, the way we do that, though, is we'll have like a 1.5 or 2 multiplier when it comes to MOA targets. But then again, also depends on the prop and what we're doing at that stage that will determine the target size.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's really cool.
Yeah, and it's been very, very receptive, and people really like it.
I love it. So what's next for Dominic, and what's next for NRL22?
So what's next for me is I'm gonna go to bed.
Retire.
Because I gotta get 5.
Yeah.
Gotta go to work. Now what's next for me is just practicing more, shooting more matches. I think the next big match that I'll be shooting is the Catalina wine mixer out in Missouri. And then probably shoot the one out in Somerset, Kentucky with Ben Blevins, his match. But ultimately, I'll be going to nationals at the end of the year, or end of the season, I should say, which is also in Missouri this year, which is Memorial Weekend. NRL22, we're always trying to make our industry better than what it was the day before.
I love it. Dominic, thank you. Thanks for being receptive to a stranger reaching out to you on social media to talk about guns. I love it.
Nothing new.
Awesome. So yeah, find Dominic on social media. Go shoot NRL22 and have fun. So
Absolutely.
Thanks again for all you listeners, and let me know and let Dominic know if you go out there and shoot a match now. We want to know.
Absolutely.
Thanks for listening to the Reticle Up podcast. Be sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. Follow along on social media at Reticle Up or 3 Gun Kenzie.